and welcome to the Municipality of Anchorage Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals meeting for December 8th, 2022. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Ellen McKay.
Here.
Dave Hale.
Here.
Dale Smythe.
Here.
Skylar Quinn.
Here.
Scott Myers.
Here.
Jackie Sabina, Andrew Romerdahl, and Brian Flynn are excused. You have a quorum. Thank you.
Do I do it now, or do I wait? Okay. First, or second order of business are minutes. We have minutes for Monday, October the 10th, 2022. Can I have a positive motion for approval, please? Moved by Mr. Quinn, seconded by Mr. Myers. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, is there any objection to approval of the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are approved, and we'll move on to the special order of business. Are there any disclosures for this evening? No disclosures. Nothing on the consent agenda, no appearance requests, no unfinished business, nothing on the regular agenda, which brings us to public hearings. One case this evening. And because there are 5 members here, we have what's called a short board. When there is a short 5-member board, a postponement is offered. And if agreed to by the petitioner, they will be moved to the next regular agenda. This should occur within 30 days, which does not require renoticing the case. And if the petitioner is willing to postpone but unable to attend the next available meeting within the 30 days, the petitioner has a one-time only option to choose the next date certain that he or she can attend at no extra fee. When a postponement is requested by the petitioner, there is a rescheduling fee, blah, blah, blah. So, and the reason it's offered is that it takes all 5 of us to agree to the request. And so, is the petitioner here? Okay, and do you want to continue? Do you want to go forward? Could you come forward to the, state your name for the record? And
My name is Jeremy Bowles.
okay, you turn the mic on. That's the little button on. There you go. And the red light is on now.
My name is Jeremy Mose.
Okay, and you agree that we should continue? You don't want to postpone?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. So, a variance hearing, and there is a procedure to be followed. The procedure by which the public may speak to the board at this meeting is, after the staff presentation is complete on the public hearing items, the chair will ask for the applicant to state their case. The applicant, including all of his or her representatives, has 10 minutes for presentation and may reserve time for rebuttal at the end of the public hearing. Throughout the proceedings, the burden of proof rests upon the applicant, who must convince the board by a preponderance of evidence that the variance should be granted. A concurring vote of a majority of the fully constituted membership of the board, minus those excused for conflicts of interest, shall be required to grant a variance. For a variance to be granted, all 8 standards must be substantially met. On the conclusion of the applicant's presentation, the board members and the staff may then direct questions to the applicant through the chair. The chair will then open the hearing to public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established by the rules of procedure. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc., have 5 minutes. Individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. The time is kept by the secretary. The display at the front will be green to within 1 minute of the time allowed, then it will turn yellow. At this time, you should begin to sum up your testimony. At the end of the allowed time, the light will turn red and a tone will sound. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals takes. The parties have 30 days from the date of mailing or other distribution of the decision to file an appeal to Superior Court. Okay, that being said, the first case is case 2022-0123, and the petitioner is Jerry Mimose. Will the staff please describe the notice given in this case?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On November 14th, 2022, a total of 131 public hearing notices were mailed in accordance with the procedures of AMC 2103-02H notice.
Is there any objections to the sufficiency of notice in this case? Seeing none, will the staff please present the case?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request for a variance from AMC 2106-020, Table of Dimensional Standards for Residential Districts, to allow a proposed single-family house and deck to encroach 10 feet into the required 25-foot front setback. There is significant topography present on the petitioner's lot. The subject property is located in the R6 district, and Lot 1 was created by Plat 71-281. This lot is a non-conforming lot of record as it does not meet the minimum lot width of 158 feet required in the R6. Therefore, the setback standards of the R7 single-family residential apply, and that setback of the property is 25 feet for the front. The site has a level building pad built when the road extension was created, and there are steep slopes to the east of the pad in excess of 11%. In the findings, staff has found that standard A has been met. There is steep topography on the petitioner's lot as shown on the topographic map provided in the application. The property owner extended the road and built a driveway under slope constraints, which the house and deck appear to be proposed in the only portion suitable for development on this lot. In this way, the home and deck will minimize the disturbance of steep slopes as called for in the 2010 Hillside District Plan. The steep slope poses an exceptional, extraordinary physical circumstance of the property. Staff finds condition B has been met. Strict application of the code in conjunction with constraints posed by the slopes would create an undue hardship by requiring the petitioner to redesign and remove a portion of the proposed single-family structure and deck. Due to the restrictive topography, location constraints of an on-site septic and well, and combined with the setbacks, there would be few, if any, options for the petitioner to relocate the structure and the deck. Standard C, staff has found that has been met. The subject property has been undeveloped since it was platted in 1971. It would be a reasonable assumption that the main reason it has remained undeveloped is due to the physical characteristics of the lot as described above, as well as the design of the lot as platted and constructing the road to meet the allowable grade by the Muni. These are platted in natural conditions and circumstances and are not self-inflicted by the petitioner. Standard D, staff has found that has been met. Given the character, history, and current zoning of the neighborhood, it does not appear at this time that granting the variance will adversely affect the use of adjacent properties. Neighboring property owners will retain ability to make full lawful use of their land should this variance be granted. If the variance is approved, the structure will be 15 feet from the property line within a 60-foot undeveloped right-of-way for Midori Drive. And Midori Drive is highly unlikely to ever be built past the driveway standard that the petitioner built. If you look at page 8 of the maps, you can kind of see how it just dead ends. His is the last lot with the driveway just curving. The petitioner can explain how he had to work with private development to build that to the maximum allowable grade to get to the building pad. Staff finds standard E has been met. The requested variance will not change the character of the R6 low-density residential district. Granting this variance for the proposed single-family structure and deck to encroach into the required front setback will not permit either a principal or accessory use other than what is already permitted under Anchorage Municipal Code Title 21. F, staff finds that standard has been met. The variance request does not appear that it will result in any negative impacts to the health or safety of the people of the municipality. Staff finds G has been met. single-family dwelling units are not subject to the provisions of the American with Disabilities Act. And staff finds that standard H has been met. The variance request for the proposed single-family structure and deck to encroach 10 feet into the required 25-foot setback on the steeply sloped lot is the minimum variance necessary to make reasonable use of the land for its intended use. I believe you may have the color application packet that was provided by the applicant, but if we look at page 18 and 19, we can look at the road extension he built, and then we can take a look at page 20, 21, and especially 22 that shows the proposed house location and all the surrounding steep slopes. So with that in mind, the department finds that standards A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H have been met for the proposed single-family structure, and therefore the department recommends approval of the variance subject to conditions 1 and 2 found on page 5 of the staff packet. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions of staff by the board? Are there any questions of staff by the applicant? No. Will the applicant please come forward and state and spell your name for the record?
My name is Jeremy Mohs, Jeremy-Mohs.
And would you please present your case?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a very unusual lot. That's including the shape of the lot and the topography that's present on the lot. I had to deal in getting the right-of-way permit to get access to this lot. I had to use the existing Midori elevation and use the maximum allowable grades that MOA allows to get up to the proposed building pad. This required me to build an approach that's essentially the maximum that's allowable, which prevents me from moving the building east along with the topography that's there, because that would put the house basically underground. So it's an odd-shaped lot, and it has a very small window of an area to develop an appropriately sized house. And this subdivision does have requirements for size constraints, so you can't put on like a mini house or a tiny structure. It has to be of a certain size. So all these factors are limiting, and in addition to all that, it's a non-conforming lot, so that also decreases the areas that we can put building, septic, well, and all that. So it's been very challenging, and I don't really have anything else to say. I agree with the staff's assessment, and I appreciate Sean going through all that, and I can answer any questions, but I don't really have anything else to say.
Thank you. You have 7 minutes and 55 seconds for rebuttal. Are there any questions of the applicant by the board members? Seeing none. Are there any questions of the applicant by the staff?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mohs.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify in this case? Please come forward. State and spell your name for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Hubert Gellert, H-U-B-E-R-T, G-E-L-L-E-R-T. Can I proceed?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. My wife Janet and I live at 12831 Tracy Way, which is Lot 2, Block 2, Aspen Highlands subdivision, directly across Midori Drive from the appellant's lot. And equally important, directly below the lot due to the elevation change. We developed the subdivision and have lived there for 53 years. The subdivision streets, Tracy Way and Midori Drive, are named for our daughters. We object to the granting of this variance. We find that there are excellent reasons to reject all the findings of the staff. There is a slope on the back of the lot, not an exceptional physical circumstance on the hillside and an Aspen Highlands subdivision under Section A. The conditions in Section B have also not been met. Strict application of the code will not create an exceptional or undue hardship upon the applicant because the slope as it is does not prevent construction of a single-family house, and part of the slope can be removed. It appears from the photograph that some of the slope has been or will be removed. More of the slope could be removed and the house moved to the east or southeast and the full planned deck installed. The deck could also be made smaller, as on our house. Item C is also not valid. We kept the lot off the market for added privacy and enjoyment while raising 4 children. We put the lot up for sale about 3 years ago. Their, quote, reasonable assumption is completely invalid. Similarly, per Section D, the variance would adversely affect the use of our property by the very nature of putting a structure closer than is allowed and in our view. Not only will this affect our enjoyment of our property, but also it will reduce the value of our property. We think the staff interpretation of item E is very much open to question. We believe the primary intent of the code is to be enforced, and the justification is overly narrow. Interestingly, in Section F, the criterion refers to the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the municipality. But then the staff writing mentioned just the health or safety of the people. Our welfare would definitely be negatively impacted. Item H appears to hinge on interpretation of the word reasonable. We don't think it's unreasonable to get by with a smaller deck or move the footprint of the not yet built house. This house has not been built. Plans can be changed. This may cost money. If the house is built with a proposed encroachment, our house stands to lose value, which will cost us money. Thank you. Any questions? I'll try to answer them.
Are there any questions of Mr. Gellert by this board? Mr. Smythe.
Through the chair, yeah, thank you, Mr. Gellert, for your testimony. You mentioned this would reduce the value of your house, and I don't understand that statement.
Well, I think both my wife and I are real estate associate brokers, and I think the presence of a deck which intrudes excessively over our house would be noticed by any potential buyer and would affect the sales price.
How far away is your house across the lot down the hill, correct?
Excuse me? I didn't hear that.
Your house is down the hill across the street, correct?
That is correct.
How far away would you guess that is? So we could measure that.
As the crow flies,
Yeah.
probably about 50 to 70 feet.
Yeah, the right-of-way on Midori Drive looks like it's 60 total, and then an additional setback. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Gellert by the board?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gellert. Oh, let's see. Right. Anyone else? Come forward, please. State and spell your name for the record.
My name is Stephen McKee, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, M-C-K-E-E.
Present.
May I proceed?
Yes.
My wife and I are also homeowners in this subdivision. We are not directly adjacent to the lot at issue here. We have one lot between us and the lot that Mr. Mose has purchased and for which he seeks a variance. We do believe that we are also affected, indirectly, but still affected. We wish to object, or I wish to object, for many of the same reasons that Mr. Gellert has. We have examined the analysis, the findings, the photographs, the maps, and the plans that have been included in the packet. And we do not agree that the criteria necessary for the granting of a variance have been met, specifically in finding A, that these are exceptional circumstances. The area that we're talking about, this entire development, is on the hillside, and other homeowners, without applying for a variance or using a variance, with steeper grades, have dealt with the slopes in equal or steeper grades. They've dealt with it without a variance. Also, we don't believe that criteria B has been met, and that this is an undue hardship if the variance is not granted. The applicant has apparently already taken some of the actions necessary to resolve the issues he raises. This can be seen on page 13 and in the photographs on page 20 and 22. He has already cut into the slope to make the level pad to which he has referred in his testimony and which is referred to in his letter. He plans a retaining wall already to take care of this slope. You can see that on page 16, the diagram on page 16 in the southeast corner of this lot. Further, in subparagraph C, the hardship claim should not be self-imposed. This criteria is not even close to being met. The applicant chose the site. He was aware of the grade. He had a level pad cut into the slope, apparently not far enough back to where he could put the house that he planned to build there without asking for a variance, where he encroaches upon the 25-foot setback. And the house plans, which he alone chose, and the deck size, which he has chosen, these are all his choices. So to say that these are not self-imposed defies logic.
Your time is up.
My time is up?
Yeah.
I would answer one question that was asked for impact if I would be allowed to do so.
Are there any questions of Mr. McKee? Mr. Quinn?
Yeah, it says in this application that the deck is 12 feet wide. That doesn't seem like an unreasonably sized deck. I just know that you kind of pointed out to the deck that was going to be up there.
If you look at the topography of the land there, and I noted that there was a 72-foot or 70-foot approximate distance there. And I'm familiar with the site and the land, and I've looked at the topography also. What you have is about a 20-foot difference in elevation already between the pad that's been constructed and the Gellert's property, their front door, their windows, the rest of their structure. And when you take that 20-foot elevation, add 8 foot to it at the minimum where the deck would be to start, and then let's say a 5 to 6 foot person, you're talking about a 35-foot elevation, at least a 35-foot elevation, 70 feet away for somebody looking directly down into their property. And this does affect privacy when you've got this elevated view. That has not been addressed, but it does.
Sure, any house is going to affect a neighbor's property, but I think that this one's a little interesting because this is the developer of the subdivision. So if he intended this piece of land for pure privacy, he could have made it a tract, or he could have just kept the land, or there's
I'm
action.
sorry, I'm not understanding you, but please.
I'm saying that this is the developer, the original developer of the subdivision. I mean, he designed this for a house to go on this land at some time. If he's really concerned about privacy in the future, there's other actions that could have been taken to make sure it was private, such as either keeping the lot for himself or making it a tract or something else to limit or to help keep the privacy that he has. So I'm just not quite buying the argument.
Well, one would assume that the developer would rely on the code being enforced and not having a structure, especially an elevated structure, moved closer to his own property. In other words, if he developed this lot and laid it out and so on, he would assume that the code provisions would be enforced. I would think that's logical.
I would think so.
Would it not be?
I would think so too, but there's also a process that can be taken if your lot, or if there's certain standards that are abided by that allow wiggle room, such as what's currently taking place.
Well, I'm sorry. One of the other assumptions I think a developer would make was that somebody would make full use of the lot, where an excavation has already been done somewhat, but a further excavation 10 feet back would solve the whole problem. I'm not sure a developer would consider that, but that is a very reasonable option that's still available. Have I missed the point here or not answered your question?
No, I've heard what you said, and I appreciate you coming up here and voicing your opinion.
Okay.
Any other questions of Mr. McKee? Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Please come forward.
Hi.
You can bend it
Can you hear
down.
me?
You can bend it down. There you go.
My name is Janet Gellert, Gellert. My husband and I purchased 40 acres around 1970, and we arranged for the development of Aspen Highlands with the help of Dickinson and Oswald, who are civil engineers. At the time, we also provided some covenants for the homeowners that want to live there, and they were designed for their protection. For disclosure purposes, I want you to know we're both still real estate associate brokers. We live in the subdivision, and we're directly below the subject property in consideration of this variance. And we live in Block 2, Lot 2 of Aspen Highlands. Even without anything yet being constructed on the subject lot, one can see directly into our kitchen and our bedroom windows because more trees have fallen down, and that's probably due to climate change and winds, extra winds going on in that area. We don't want to look at any structure closer to our property than necessary. An extra 10-foot deck sticking out and closer to our property shouldn't cause a neighboring property to lose value for resale. And as a professional involved in real estate, I would say it will. It shouldn't be at the detriment to adjacent neighbors' enjoyment and privacy. The higher vertical distance that our neighbor was just talking about of the jutting 10-foot deck will probably feel like it's hovering over us, and the extra elevation or distance will make it look a lot closer to us, to our house. We don't want to be bad neighbors or unfriendly, but why should we let him break the rules? Rest of us are trying to abide by the rules. It may be an inconvenience to the new lot owner and applicant, but it doesn't sound like it's necessary for structural integrity or to make his house structure habitable. He still has options to shorten his house plans by 10 feet, or shorten the deck by 10 feet, or move the house around the pad. An extra 10-foot deck doesn't give him better access to basic transportation, water supply, sewerage, or other public facilities. We object to the variance and any further impingements. It does not meet the standards set up for a variance as we see it. We respect the hard work of the zoning department. Zoning is there for a reason, and to us, zoning matters. Thank you.
Are there any questions by the board for Mrs. Gellert? Mr. Smythe?
Ms. Gellert, can you show me in the photos in the packet what view your house is on? I'm looking through here, and hopefully I can hand it to you. Yeah. Let's see.
It's the first picture. The second picture doesn't sound, we couldn't figure it out either. It didn't seem accurate. But the first picture, which shows the house from the aerial view.
In this one, it looks like it's down the driveway, and I can't see any homes in this photograph.
Oh, I don't think I have that picture.
The numbers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this would be picture 6 in the packet.
The picture on page 17 doesn't look accurate to me.
Picture 6 in the packet is what I'm referring to. It looks like it's looking down the driveway from about where, halfway down the deck, perhaps? Page 23 in the packet.
Okay, I can see our house on page 8, but I haven't seen it anywhere else.
Page 8.
Well, thank you.
I don't know what to do here. Sorry.
Mr. Smythe? You're done? Anyone else have a question for Ms. Gellert? Thank you for your testimony.
Are there any other questions?
No questions.
Sorry, thank you.
Does the staff have any rebuttal?
No, Madam Chair.
Does the applicant have any rebuttal?
Yes.
You have almost 8 minutes.
Okay, I'll make it. I appreciate you guys pointing out your arguments. I just want to point out that I have taken provisions to deal with the slopes. Because there is a cut right now with the building pad, they point out that I could cut further into the bank to push the house further east. Right now, I've already increased the height from the ground level to the first floor to 16 feet. And that's a very large jump to take advantage of any sort of outdoor space off the back of the lot, because of the topography. So if I go further east, it essentially puts the house underground and without cutting the slopes away entirely. There's going to be no usable space out the east side of the house. I'll also point out that I'm not here to break rules. I was looking for relaxing of the requirements, and that's why we're here. I'm not here to break rules. I will point out that Lot 2 of this subdivision, which is the lot directly to the southeast of mine, the house is essentially built on my property line. So this has happened in the past to where someone has taken it upon themselves apparently to break the rules and not go through the process. But I'm here, I want to be a good neighbor to these folks. I'll also point out real quickly that I keep hearing the 70-foot dimension from my proposed deck to their house. If you look at the easement for Midori, that's 60 feet. Looks like another 60 feet off Midori to their house, plus another, it would be another 15 feet horizontally to my deck. So that's quite a bit more than 70 feet. It's more like 135. And that's horizontal, and that's not figuring in the slope distance, which would be even greater. I don't think where the deck would be looking directly at the Gellerts. It's kind of off to one side. There's not a picture wasn't taken to the west, which is where the Gellerts property is, down the slope. The deck is more situated looking, it would be more or less looking west, northwest. So I don't think it would be pointed, one wouldn't be standing right at the deck looking down upon their property. It would be more so off to one side. That's all I have to say, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And with that, the public hearing is closed and the matter rests with the board. May I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Hale.
Through the chair, I move in case 2022-0123 to approve a variance from AMC 21.06.020, table 21.06-1, table of dimensional standards, residential districts, to allow a single-family structure and deck to encroach 10 feet into the required 25-foot setback, subject to conditions 1 and 2 shown on page 5 of the staff report.
Is there a second? Mr. Quinn. It has been moved and seconded that the variance be granted to approve a variance from AMC 21.06.020, table 21.06-1, table of dimensional standards, residential districts, to allow a single-family structure and deck to encroach 10 feet into the required 25-foot front setback, subject to conditions 1 and 2 shown on page 5 of the staff report. Is there any discussion?
Do you want me to speak about it? Do you want me to speak about it?
Mr. Hale, please speak to your motion.
Thank you.
Oops.
Through the chair, I just point out a couple of things. On the hillside, we deal a lot with steep slopes, and they're difficult to develop in conjunction with the code because there are limits to the slopes, the approach slopes, driveways, all of that. It sounds like this one kind of barely fits in that you've worked pretty hard with the staff to make it a maximum of 15%. And by doing this, there's a 2010 Hillside District Plan. That plan covers everyone, not just a couple of people. So it's had a lot of thought that's gone into it, and it's been vetted for quite a while, since apparently 2010. And if everybody's going to live in harmony, we're going to have to go by plans, right? And we all know that sometimes lots are non-conforming, and we need to implement some special restrictions or some variances in order to make them, useful. I mean, you've basically developed a lot that's not all that useful. So if you sell it to somebody and it's not useful, you kind of ripped them off, right? If you're not going to be able to develop their lot. So with the steep slopes, I think that it's a really good reason to allow a variance. The other part of this is a commonly enjoyed right that people have in their communities, right? So you got an R6 or you got an R7 zoning district where people have 4,000 square foot houses and 10 foot, 12 foot decks. They got 2-car garages. That's a commonly enjoyed right that people have living in that area. So if you're going to tell one guy that he can't have that common right, just like all of his neighbors, that's not all that fair either, and that's a really good reason to come ask for a variance, as far as I'm concerned. So I think that the two important findings here are the steep topography really limits the development of this property, and the common enjoyment of a standard house that fits in that neighborhood along with the size of the deck is another finding that makes me want to support this variance.
Mr. Quinn?
I think Mr. Hale summed it up really nicely. I agree with all his points. I'll also be supporting the motion, and I also agree with staff's findings. I don't have anything else to add.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. Are you ready for the question? The question is on the adoption of the motion to grant a variance to from AMC 2106-020, Table 2106-1, to allow a single-family structure and deck to encroach 10 feet into the required 25-foot front setback, subject to conditions 1 and 2 on page 5 of the staff report. A yes vote will grant the variance, and a no vote will deny the variance. Please vote. Only had 4. Okay. There are 5 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative. The variance is granted. Next up are reports. Reports from the chair. I don't have any reports. Reports from the secretary. Nothing from the secretary. No committees. Any board member comments? All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And we are adjourned. Mr. Myers seconded. I don't know. Mr. Myers seconded. Who?